Origin just UX, and this is the second Punic War Oversimplified Part 3, Part 2. Yeah, I did the first half few 2 days ago. I don't know. Yeah, I did the first half, and it was insane. Hannibal and Scipio the Younger, like this shit is intensifying. Scipio the Younger literally copying Hannibal's strategy, right? I mean, it makes sense. That's how things work, right? It's form of flattery, I guess. People, Napoleon read about like how Caesar worked, how Alexander the Great worked, right? How Hannibal worked, right? So it just makes sense. But it's like too early. Let's just say Hannibal's literally working right now. He's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna copy him and dominate shit, and he is dominating. This city thing, this siege one was insanity. How he, saw the geography, right? Rising of the tides and things, and just like took entire city in a day. Basically, what Hannibal did, right? Copying basically what Hannibal did a lot of time. So yeah, this story has been insane so far. Let's watch it. I like how Hannibal, like in my mind, Hannibal is just rising. How badass he is, because previously Doa Hattie and things like that, the parody style, short documentary style things, who just touched on subjects shortly, because those videos talked about the whole timelines, right? So like 3-4 years, just he had to cram into like 2-3 minutes, and it was more like a parody thing. So in my head, it's like Hannibal is just some like guy who's like really badass, but got an eye infection, died because everybody around him was incompetent. He could win battles but not war type of shit. But yeah, it's much more nuanced than that.
Scipio's achievement in taking a well-fortified city, plus his understanding of the overall strategy, has led some historians to argue he wasn't just as good as Hannibal. Scipio may actually have been better. This young man, who many in Rome had doubted, had just shut those silly billies, right, the flip-up. Mere years ago, it looked like Rome had no chance of even surviving this war. But now, the momentum of war was shifting astonishingly fast. And for
somebody said in the comments like how Hannibal basically took over the majority of Italy and like dominated Rome completely. And like other Carthaginian generals couldn't even like hold a small part of Spain. And that is so true. Hannibal, nobody was even 50% Hannibal. If they were like it would have been like somewhat dominant. Like all the great men like Alexander the Great, Napoleon, whoever want to talk about Julius Caesar, there was some element there, there was some competency around them, right? They weren't the only factor, right? Because single-handedly they can't do shit. So I think that's what bit Hannibal the worst. Hannibal would have dominated Rome, right? Carthaginian would have won against Rome, but it was just Hannibal, like, come on.
For Hannibal in Italy, things continued to head south. Before Scipio had even gone to Spain, the Romans had placed Capua, Hannibal's largest city in Italy, under a dangerous siege. And in order to rescue it, Hannibal needed to take drastic action. Fast. Man, everything's falling apart. Fine. I'll do it! Do what? Yeah, you've convinced me. I'll march on Rome. Hannibal, that conversation was 5 years ago. It's too late. No one's trying to convince you to march on Rome. I said I'll do it! Quit nagging me! Ugh. Hannibal finally marched on Rome, hoping it might draw the Romans away from Capua. The Romans saw Hannibal approaching their city, and they freaked the hell out. Hannibal is said to have closely approached the city walls, inspecting the defenses, as the Romans inside quivered in their togas.
Imagine that, like, oh, Hannibal coming. That was 5 years ago. Hannibal's like, no, we're gonna do some smart strategy. And their Rome's whole strategy was to run away. As soon as you see Hannibal run away, everything else is fine. But, Hannibal comes, you run away. And after 5 years, you finally see Hannibal in the horizon, like, now things are going, right? Now Rome is completely fucked.
However, Hannibal probably knew he had no chance of taking the city. The whole thing was a feint, and Hannibal soon left. The Romans famously coined the phrase, Hannibal is at the gates, to describe a moment of crisis or severe desperation. But for accuracy's sake, the phrase should probably be, Hannibal is at the gates. But don't worry, it's just a feint to draw the Romans away from Capua. And it didn't even work, because the Romans stayed at Capua, and the Capuans misunderstood and thought Hannibal had abandoned them. And so,
I mean, if you create a whole environment like you're a boogeyman, Romans at the Capua was like, I guess Rome is done now. I guess we need to create new Rome in the southern part of Italy now, because Rome is fucked. Okay, I guess, because Hannibal's there. That's the problem of creating too much power, right? Oh my God, Hannibal is might as well be like a god in disguise or something. He's coming to kill. I guess Rome is done. Why even try to go after Hannibal at that point? You're gonna die. Roman's gonna die. What's the point? Let's just keep Capo or something.
They surrendered the city. But apparently that's not as catchy. Despite a few successes, including an ambush in 208 BC, where Hannibal managed to kill both consuls in one go, Hannibal was slowly but steadily losing his grip on southern Italy. Even Hasdrubal, who had fled Spain to join Hannibal, never reached his brother. He made his own dramatic crossing of the Alps, just as Hannibal had done. But unlike Hannibal, the second Hasdrubal arrived in Italy, he was immediately pulverized. The Romans then took his head and threw it.
Imagine that, right? This is so grim, like this is so dark. But then again, it's been thousands of years. I shouldn't laugh like this, but I'm Hannibal part 2. I'm gonna cross the Alps just bravely as Hannibal did. I'm gonna get an eye infection and I'm gonna dominate. No, that's
over the walls into his brother's camp. Hannibal was becoming extremely isolated. After his impressive conquest of Spain, Scipio returned to Rome a hero. And when the election came for next year's consuls, despite not meeting the typical requirements, Scipio won in a landslide. But the question now was, what would he do next? All right, what's your plan then, Scipio? You're gonna go fight Hannibal now, right? Get this, Fabius. No. Scipio's plan remained the same as before. Don't attack the monster directly. Attack his base of support, which now happened to be Carthage itself. That's right, Scipio would invade Africa. However, Scipio understood that any invasion of Africa would stand a much better chance if he could secure an alliance with one of the African tribes. Throughout the war, Carthage's far superior Numidian cavalry, which came from this part of Africa, had played a critical role in winning battles. Numidia was divided between two rival kings. In the east, the king Syphax had sympathized with Rome for much of the war, and so at some point, Scipio visited Syphax to ratify a treaty. It just so happened, however, that the Carthaginian general Hasdrubal Gisco, whom Scipio had fought in Spain, also arrived at the exact same time.
The younger Hasdrubal, right?
And so Syphax invited both Scipio and Gisco for a meal. The two men fought for Syphax's alliance, and by Roman accounts, Scipio was positively charming. Come on, Syphax, stick with us Romans. We'll build a naked statue of you.
This guy was like a playboy in his teen years. Then he did ridiculous shit as soon as he touched 20. Didn't even met the requirement, a lot of requirement needed to be in position in Rome. It just bypassed this. I don't give a fuck. We are in crisis. We are doing this. Dominated the world, still in his 20s. Come on, at this point he's flying sky high. He's in the clouds now. He's gonna be charismatic. He's gonna have a spunk, as OverSimplified says, even more now, right? Everything is just gonna ooze out of it. Just there's a presence, right? There are people in the world who's so charismatic and there's such aura with them that there's a presence. As soon as they walk into the room, oh, what the fuck, who's that? Scipio's probably like that.
Pretty enticing. If you join our side, Syphax, we'll give you a 2% discount on figs. You like figs, don't you? Not really. Hey, Syphax, check this out. Wow! Hey, Syphax, check this out. Did he just defecate? I believe he did. Well, Scipio, you clearly are the most charming man in the Mediterranean.
That's all matters.
My alliance is... Syphax, I'll let you marry my extremely hot daughter. Yours! Humana, humana! Unable to compete with Syphax's libido, Scipio instead made contact with Syphax's rival, the other Numidian king, Massinissa, who was a longtime ally of Carthage. Scipio told Massinissa, if you join the Romans, I'll help you defeat Syphax and become the ultimate Numidian king. And so Massinissa was now on Team Rome. Good job, Skippy. With a Numidian alliance solidified, Scipio prepared for his
enemy of my enemy. Even though that was enemy because of my enemy, is now my friend.
Invasion of Africa. He raised a volunteer force that included many of the disgraced survivors from Cannae, and he set sail. Well, Terry, any news from Italy? Has Hannibal won the war yet? Who on earth? Here's Skippy!
That was fucking what was that movie? Right, this is that one.
The Roman landing sent a clear message to the Carthaginians.
Taxi driver, I don't know.
Invade
Who was
us.
that?
No. We invade you. For the first time in the war, the Carthaginian homeland was under threat, and the Carthaginians needed to defeat Scipio at all costs. They gathered a huge army led by Hasdrubal Gisco, with allied Numidians led by Syphax, and they ordered them to get Scipio the hell off their continent. Sources say at this point, Scipio was severely outnumbered. Scipio? That army's huge! There's no way we can beat off all these men! How are we gonna beat off all these men? Vigorously! And while maintaining eye contact. As always, Scipio had a plan to deal with
That's
the
probably
larger
realistic.
enemy force. It just so happened that Syphax was offering to try and broker peace between the Romans and the Carthaginians. And Scipio smelled an opportunity. He sent a Roman envoy to Syphax's camp. And when they got there, Syphax was like, "Hey guys, welcome to the enemy camp. Just before we begin negotiations, a small safety demonstration. As you can see, our huts are made of grass and reeds. Very flammable. If there was even a single spark, this whole place would become a raging inferno, and all my men would burn alive." Very interesting. The Roman troops then reported back to Scipio about the Numidian camp, its construction, and most importantly, its flammability. Then, the following night, as the sun was setting over the beautiful African plains, and the Carthaginians got all comfy in their beds, they began to gently dream of Carthaginian figs and child sacrifice. Good night, Carthaginians. Good night, Syphax and Gisco. Good.
I like how OverSimplified's ability to make this sound like some kind of a children's book type shit, sarcastically, while being some intense shit. That's the whole power of OverSimplified. He could make this like vulgar, intensify it a bit, but no, this is just perfection.
Good evening, Scipio. In the night, shadowy Roman figures approached the Numidian camp. As the Numidians lay in their beds, Scipio executed his plan. The camp erupted into flames. With the flammable wooden huts, the fires spread.
He should have made that like Joker animation or some shit, right? Scipio came and walked away like that, everything blows up.
Terrifyingly fast. Men were burned in their beds. Those who awoke in a panic, believing the fire to have been some kind of terrible accident, rushed to the exits without their weapons and armor. Those who saw the fire from the Carthaginian camp also rushed out unarmed. And when they got there he was, Scipio.
This is the problem with Carthage. They always use mercenaries, so they don't have like war mentality in that way, right? So they're still thinking they're in town or something. Oh my god, fire broke out, let's take bucket. Oh, wait a minute. Aren't we just few distance away from Scipio? Aren't we at a battlefield? Aren't this barracks? What if, let's just think for a second, what if this is like attack from them and take swords?
The Romans and their steel. The terrified Carthaginians were massacred, and with heavy casualties, Hasdrubal and Syphax fled the scene of the disaster. Scipio followed this incredible success with another victory against the pair at the Battle of the Great Plains. After that, Massinissa chased his rival Syphax into his kingdom, where Syphax was captured. Massinissa was now the ultimate Numidian king. He entered Syphax's capital city. He seized Syphax's palace. He even married Syphax's wife. And when Scipio got mad at him for marrying a Carthaginian girl, he then poisoned his wife. Boys will be boys. Having defeated the Carthaginian army.
Hey dude, come on, you married Carthaginian, that's like a symbol and stuff. Ah, fuck. Alright, here's a poison. Drink it, darling. Come on now, it's about politics.
In Africa, almost nothing now stood between Scipio and Carthage. and the Carthaginians were freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? There's only one thing left to do. Recall him.
Hannibal?
Well, Hannibal, you've been here in Italy for 16 years. This is practically your home. You're basically Italian. Yes, Gerald, and I've had such a lovely time. I ate spaghetti, did this with my hands. I've committed my whole life to this campaign, and once Rome has fallen, it'll all have been worth it. Hannibal, you have to return to Carthage. Your Italian campaign has been for nothing. Your whole life has been a waste. No! Imagine being Hannibal in this moment. You left Carthage when you were 9. You probably barely even recognize your own homeland. The kingdom he had built in Spain with his father? Gone. And now his Italian campaign, his vengeance. Was it really all for nothing? But that was that. Carthage was under threat, and Hannibal had to protect his home city. As
I mean, take Rome, but worry about Carthage later at that point, right? Because that's what Scipio wants you to do. And in Carthage, whenever he asked for resupply, like the politics got in the way. Some a-holes who didn't like Hannibal, like, yeah, no, we're not giving him any supply. So I mean, come on, you asked for this shit. Just if anything, Scipio is in like Carthage, go after Rome full force or something.
he left Italy, in Rome, there was celebration, but also some trepidation. Now, Scipio would have to face Hannibal in Africa, where Hannibal would have home advantage. While Hannibal was on his way, the Carthaginians stalled for time and approached Scipio for peace talks. Hey, look, we never meant to start an all-out 2-decade-long war, but you did. No, that was Hannibal. He's to blame for all of this. Well, all right then. Sign this peace treaty. Okay, let me just get my signature right on there. He's here.
See, again, these politicians are fucking Hannibal behind his back. Like, at this point, like, come on. Like I said in the first portion I did, yeah, if you don't have ultimate power, conquering is not going to be that realistic, which is what Hannibal is finding out right now. But he should have gone after Rome or something, just take matters into his own hand. I don't know, maybe there's like moral elements, maybe no way in hell he could take Rome, sure. But like, all this shit was going to happen anyway.
Yes! Oh, look who's here, you bald prick! You're so dead now, Skippy. Don't call me that! After Carthage proposed peace, only to then go back on it, the normally merciful Scipio was enraged. He began refusing to accept town's surrender, and instead began burning everything to the ground, selling everyone into slavery. Hannibal, he's burning our towns. Go stop him. Guys, he's obviously trying to lure me out there to fight on those flat plains, where his Numidian cavalry will give him the advantage. It's a trick. Well, it's working. Go and fight him. It's obviously a trap, and we're falling for it. Go and fight him. Hannibal set out to meet Scipio in the western plains. And here came Scipio's final test.
Imagine Scipio, who's like, who idolized Hannibal basically his life, right? Since he was a teenager, since he started fighting. He idolized Hannibal. Now Scipio is literally burning Hannibal's home. Hannibal knows this is a trap, but he has to go in, besides all these jokes. Obviously, Hannibal had to go in because he can't just sit around. Hannibal doesn't have an advantage anymore. Scipio does. So Scipio can do all this shit and Hannibal has to fall for it. It is a trick. It is a trap. But I have to go. So imagine Scipio's excitement. Like, oh shit, I'm gonna best Hannibal now. I'm gonna be glorious name for Rome for centuries.
Finally, the teacher would face the student. The two greatest generals of all time in one last, decisive battle. Would Hannibal's genius still shine through? Or would Scipio prove that he had surpassed the master? Before battle, the two great generals rode out from their camps and met in person for the first time. Hannibal, I'm a huge fan. I thought you'd have more hair, and I thought you'd have more eyes. Touché. They then had a conversation, which I'll paraphrase. Hannibal said, at the start of this war, I had great fortune in Italy. But look at me now, a sad old man who, like other sad old men, failed to conquer Rome. Your fortune can change rapidly, Scipio. You should consider negotiating a peace rather than risking it all in one last fight against me. Very eloquently put. Scipio then replied, You! Negotiate? Negotiate what? I took Spain. I'm about to burn your pathetic city to the ground. What could you offer me in negotiations? I already have it all! Ah! Seriously though, Hannibal, I am such a big fan. And so, it was settled.
And he was like, that is the negotiation. I have nothing to lose, right? This fight is a must for me. You have everything to lose. And that's why peace treaty. You have a higher hand, so you can dictate negotiation talks. But if we go to war, you're dead. I'll basically burn out Rome again, right? One by one, even if it takes time.
The two great generals would face off one last time in the epic Battle of Zama. Scipio gave his men, consisting of many survivors from Cannae, a pre-battle speech, telling them not only would they gain redemption, but they could become masters of the world. Hannibal told his men probably nothing, because most of them didn't even speak the same language. As the two armies lined up for battle, something interesting became.
And he was like, pointy thing, stab. Pointy stab, okay? Let's go.
Clear. Hannibal had more infantry and hoped to use them to brute strength the Romans. But Scipio had the nimble Numidian cavalry and hoped to pull off an envelopment. It was a complete role reversal of Cannae. As the battle began, Hannibal made his first move. He sent his 80 war elephants to smash through and weaken the Roman Empire.
I was about to say that, like I would do that, right? These are elephants, right? War elephants, like spear them through regardless of what. So it destroys the whole formation, and then you can pick it apart one by one with a surprise, right? Obviously, like they do that every time, and I'm guessing Scipio would like know that that's happening.
Infantry. Scipio had the perfect response. He had altered his formation to create passages between the Roman maniples. His light troops stepped aside at the right moment, revealing the gaps ahead of the charging elephants. Elephants, if given the choice between a suicide charge into spears or a nice clean escape.
No. This turned into cartoon, goddammit. It just like he just stepped away and the ball went past. Oh, bye. Looney Tunes shit, that's what this is. Oh, guys, let's just give them the safe passage, let the elephant through. People who are sitting on top of elephant like, what the fuck?
We'll probably choose the escape, and that's what happened. Some elephants were so frightened from the noise that they even turned and smashed back into the Carthaginian cavalry, which the Roman cavalry then engaged. Your move.
And he was like, God damn it. Of course that was gonna happen. Of course this is my grave. This is what it all was for. Of course everything's gonna go wrong now.
Hannibal. Hannibal wasn't an idiot. He knew that he was fighting superior Numidian cavalry on open plains. So when his weaker cavalry ended up being routed from the battlefield, he probably wasn't surprised and hoped the Roman cavalry would be lured as far from the battlefield as possible, because his infantry needed time to do a clever little job. Hannibal had the numerical advantage, and he had positioned his army in 3 lines. The weaker troops were at the front, while his best men, the army that had been with him in Italy, were in the rear. As the Romans smashed into the weaker front lines, they managed to cut through them, but suffered losses and exhaustion in doing so. The same with Hannibal's second line, so that by the time...
This is basically when John Jones, do the shin kick every time, right? Fighting a guy, shin kick, walk away, knowing that this is tiring them out.
When the Romans reached Hannibal's superior third line, the two sides may have now been about equal in number. But the exhausted Romans...
Man, I don't remember who wins this one. This is exciting, right? I don't know who's gonna win. This is fucking awesome.
...had just fought an entire battle to get there, while the remaining Carthaginians were fresh and ready to go. Hannibal was still a genius. And this is where the final race began. Could Hannibal's stronger infantry finish off the Romans before the Roman cavalry returned from their pursuit? Who would be quicker, the Carthaginian infantry or the Roman cavalry? The answer: the cavalry. They had called off their pursuit just in time to turn around and hit Hannibal from the rear. And that was the deciding move. As the sandwiched Carthaginians were hacked to pieces, Hannibal knew he had lost, and he escaped the battlefield. It was a battle that some historians say was well fought on both sides. Both showed their genius, But
I
fortunately,
mean, yeah, seriously, like this is one of the most insane battle tactics I've seen, where both basically playing chess like that. Usually, that's not how battles go. Because usually two great leaders don't meet like that, right? Usually, one badass guy just completely massacring the other side. If it's like that kind of battle, right? Most battles are not between geniuses. But when geniuses are involved, usually that's how it goes. Like some genius move, battle over. But these are both were geniuses, right? So the elephant thing, and then the cavalry thing, and keeping all your like elite troop in the back. This is some insane shit. Hannibal ran away. Wouldn't that be look like okay? Hannibal ran away. Isn't that like frowned upon or something? I guess he knew like if I want like Carthage to survive, I have to survive.
fell in the favor of Scipio. With just a few thousand Roman casualties compared to 40,000 Carthaginians, Scipio had won. Hannibal advised the Carthaginian Senate that it was time to surrender. 17 years of war, finally over. The terms Rome placed on Carthage were harsh. They lost territory and were prohibited from starting any more wars with anyone without Rome's explicit permission. Carthage basically became a weak Roman client state.
Yeah, I mean, I knew Rome was gonna win Punic War, obviously, but I didn't know like who's gonna win like Hannibal versus Scipio battle. Yeah, of course Scipio won, and that's why Rome won. Okay, what happened to Hannibal after this though? Like, did he die of old age or some shit?
And what of these two military geniuses? Well, Scipio returned to Rome triumphant. For his victory in Africa, he was given the title Scipio Africanus. He had delivered Rome from an existential threat, and so, from here on out, he was primed to dominate Roman politics. He was even offered to become consul for life,
He's gonna get
but
stabbed,
he humbly
right?
refused. Politics being what it is, however, jealousy eventually grew. Scipio and his family ended up battling accusations of corruption, and Scipio, possibly becoming tired of Roman politics, retired to a nice country house by the coast. Hannibal also
You can be a badass leader and then just survive. Either rule with iron fist or walk away. There's two only options. That makes sense. Because people will like, oh, look at this Scipio, he thinks much better. Yeah, okay, Scipio saved our life. But he's too good and he will do something, right? Fear of doing something. Like people, fear in people's mind. Of course, that's gonna like there will never be a situation where people are like, oh, Scipio is a great guy, let's trust him with everything. That was never gonna happen.
took a leading role in Carthaginian politics after the war. But again, due to jealousy, factionalism, and a possibility of arrest by the Romans, he eventually entered exile. He spent the remainder of his years out east, even advising enemies of Rome. Rome's hatred of Hannibal endured, and they never stopped hoping to someday capture the monster. One story is told of how when a much older Hannibal was chilling in the city of Ephesus, a Roman delegation was sent to the city, and in that delegation was Scipio Africanus. The two men met for the second time, and they seemed to have gotten along quite well. Scipio asked Hannibal who he thought the three greatest generals of all time were. Hannibal placed Alexander the Great in number 1, Pyrrhus of Epirus in number 2, and in third place, himself. Scipio then asked,
I mean, I should have said.
"And what if you had defeated me at Zama?" "Well, Scipio, then I would have been the greatest general of all time. Please, call me Skippy." Eventually, around 183 BC, Hannibal, now in his 60s, came under threat of Roman capture. After a long life, he chose to take some poison. According to Livy, his last words, "Let us now relieve the Romans of the anxiety they have so long experienced, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death." Wow, Hannibal, what a dignified end. Gross. And there you have it. The Second Punic War. Finally done. It took 17 years to end the war, and on a personal note, making these videos has also taken 17 years off my life. Carthage began to recover from the war shockingly fast, however, and anxieties over Carthage would remain in Rome. In particular, one senator would begin calling for one last crusade against Carthage
Caesar?
to end the threat once and for all. He famously began to end all of his speeches
Cato,
with
of course.
one singular phrase.
I know why I jumped to Caesar. Yeah, there's Cato. Yeah, okay.
One of the most famous phrases in Roman history.
Yep. Got this done asked. Yeah. Man, I love this. I love oversimplified videos, man. Right? Sometimes people say like, why is it taking so long to make it? But as soon as you watch it, every single minute, right? You just feel it, like how much. I'm pretty sure like probably 15-20 minutes of video he made is like, yeah, this is not good enough and scrapped it. There's not a single minute of this video where I'm like, I'm not excited, right? It's like I'm watching some kind of like awesome movie or something. Usually I don't have that kind of reaction, right? And this is such a historical, I didn't know this, right? A lot of like details, I didn't know this. I knew by summary, I knew Rome won, but every small details like this, I didn't know. It was so awesome with the Hannibal and Scipio the Younger. It was badass. Is he going to like continue Rome history with the Cato and then forward all that? The Roman Empire. I don't know if OverSimplified would do that, right? He doesn't like. He chooses a topic and run with it rather than like following like that. I don't know, but it would be so awesome if he does after this. Alright, well, that was the second Punic OverSimplified part 3, part 2 done or something. Yeah, if you haven't seen the first part, I guess link in the description or comment. I'll pin the comment or something. But yeah, if you like my channel, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.